Morning, Ralph.
Morning, Sam.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Morning Sam, Morning Ralph. This is the podcast for restaurant technology professionals. And I'm really excited today to have a couple of guests that have been in the digital menu space now since 2006. So you can say that these fellas are absolutely pioneers in digital menus. So Greg Zinn and Peter Anselmo are here to talk about the evolution of the digital signage industry and how much it really means to restaurants. So, Greg and Peter, welcome to the show. It's great to have you guys.
Thank you,
Hey,
Paul.
thanks for having us.
Greg, let me start with you. One of the things that I find really interesting about what you do is that when you walk into a restaurant and you see digital menu boards in place, you get a sense that this is a restaurant that kind of has it together. Tell me, how have digital menu boards evolved to almost become now an expectation?
Yeah, sure. It's a great question, and as you mentioned, we've been doing this for nearly 20 years, and even before that, I had been doing digital signage initiatives in the 90s. So I've seen the evolution of digital signage, and in particular, digital menu boards. The reality is, communication, marketing of the materials or the messaging for patrons of a restaurant, the opportunity is changing in a very dynamic way. And the old static panels just don't meet the need of the businesses, both from a customer expectation point of view or customer experience point of view, but also just from a general operating point of view. I mean, if you really think about it, the supply chains and all of the things that impact how a business is going to be successful, and then on top of that, the customer experience, all of those things come together, and static menu boards just don't cut it anymore. And they really haven't for a long time. And you mentioned, you walk into a restaurant and you see digital menu boards, and you see a business who understands it and gets it. And particularly the restaurants who are doing it really well. We see it. And I go into a restaurant, even for businesses that are not my customers or not SmarterSign customers. And if they're doing digital menu boards really well, it just puts a smile on my face, because I know that those businesses understand the value of it.
Yeah, and I think, one of the real values I've always found about digital menu boards is just the opportunity to speak to guests during day parts. Let's talk about breakfast during breakfast. Let's talk about lunch during the typical lunch day part. And maybe, Peter, can you talk a little bit about day parting and how digital menu boards has brought that really to the next level for restaurants?
Yeah, day parting is one of those things where you're customizing your message to match customer behavior. So this is one of those things where it's a little bit underutilized as far as a lot of restaurants will say, okay, I only have the same menu throughout the day, but again, it's not as important as being able to advertise those specific items that the customers are more likely to purchase at that time.
Right. So you almost have an opportunity to create call outs. You can design a digital menu where there could be a space dedicated to a specific menu item or a specific limited time offer. So, Greg, with LTOs on menu boards, are SmarterSign users or digital menu board users in general, is that something that can they customize LTOs by restaurant locations? I mean, is it something that where every restaurant has to show the same thing, or can they break that up by region? I mean, this is a really flexible technology, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a great point, and it's a really good example of how moving to digital has helped, particularly multi-location, larger enterprises, really be flexible in terms of what they can offer. So instead of every location offering the same LTO and they get a printed menu or a printed LTO, POP that they put up in their restaurant, each one of those locations can roll those items out at a different time or roll them out differently. And one of the really interesting stories that that I bring up an anecdote about LTOs. I received a call from a customer who said, "I just want to call and thank you. We ran out of the materials for this month's LTO, and I had inventory from last month's LTO. And within 30 seconds, I was able to change my menu boards to show last month's LTO. And I was able to accomplish two things. One, make sure that customers are seeing an opportunity or an option that is available to them. But also, I was able to get rid of that inventory that would otherwise have gone to waste." And they were just so pleased that within 30 seconds, they were able to make that change and dramatically impact their business. Another really quick story, just going back to the day part thing, which is interesting. It occurred to me as you, Peter, were talking about it. We are seeing something that I love to see with our customers, which is they're not just looking at day parts from a morning, breakfast, or dinner point of view. For example, we have a customer in a drive-through who, from an operations point of view, they wanted to limit the number of items that their kitchen needed to be making late at night. So they went to a limited menu from 8 p.m. until 10 p.m. And it dramatically impacted their speed of being able to get options into the customer's hands, but also what their kitchen needed to be creating. And those kind of things get me really excited because it's people who are really taking advantage of what the technology can do.
Yeah, I love that. That's basically it's a real-time solution.
Yes.
Guys, let's take a step back for a second, and maybe you can describe how did this company start? You've been in business now since 2006, and that's a fantastic accomplishment for any company, never mind a technology company. What's the success here? How did you guys start up, and what's the secret to your longevity?
Pete, you want to take this one?
Sure. We started doing digital menu boards as our first sort of endeavor. Now, digital menu boards for us were a brand new technology. Screens were heavy, screens were expensive, but we saw the possibility of being able to leverage this new technology to be able to help out customers and help out businesses. Because Greg comes from a consulting background, I come from a technical background, and being able to provide a business tool for customers is something that is exciting. We love to build things. We love to make things work. And that's still the motto, our sort of reason for doing things today. We love to build things. We love to create things, whether it's an integration of a new software platform or an existing platform or a point of sale system. Making things work, making tools that are valuable to businesses is something that we're really interested in.
Hey, so Greg, let me change gears here for a second. Sure. I want to talk about multi-location operators. You guys have a ton of multi-location restaurant brands that are using the SmarterSign product. And one of the things that I'd like to understand a little bit more is where are they updating these menus? How are they updating the menus and these promotions in real time? Is this being done at the store level? Is this being done offsite by HQ? Tell me a little bit about how this all works.
Sure. The answer is yes to all of that. And every operation is different. And having a flexible tool like the SmarterSign platform allows businesses to act the way that they want to act, which is really important. We don't want to force people into paradigms that are not comfortable to the way that they operate. So we have multi-location operators where everything is done by HQ. So all of the changes that need to be made, the local operators never touch the system. Everything is done by HQ. Then we have businesses where there's a collaboration between the local operators, the franchisees, and HQ, where HQ will distribute out content, and then the local operator may have an option to select the elements that they want, but it's still controlled from a brand point of view by the corporate entity. And then we have operators where each of the local franchisees or the local businesses have much more control. They're editing prices, they're editing the specials, but really the tool should allow, and SmarterSign does allow, for the businesses to collaborate with each other, but operate in a way that's comfortable for them. And that's a really important thing. We never wanted to be, as a technology company, a company that forced people to do things our way. We wanted to adapt to them, because If the technology is really burdensome, people will avoid it and not do it. And then they're losing the value of what digital menu boards can provide. I mean, if people aren't doing it, they're not actually active in the use of the tools of digital menu boards because they're burdensome, we lose and they lose. The tools need to be simple and anybody should be able to use them. And from the get-go, we really want to make sure that real business operators can be the end users of the platform. They didn't need to have a technical background. They didn't need to have a design background, and they can still make the changes and affect their business in the way that they needed to. So software is a really important part of it, and the ease of our software is a really important part of it. The second part of it is our support model. And our support model, I would say, is equal to, even though we're a software company, the support and the way that we deal with our end users is a really important aspect of how we provide our service. And we kind of describe it as our end users are never alone. We give them the tools to be as self-sufficient as they want to be, but we're really there to help and support them every step of the way. And just a real quick anecdote about this. When we started the business, Peter and I talked about the support model, and we said, no matter how big we get, no matter how many customers we have, we should always stay intimate with the customer experience. We should always understand what those customers are dealing with so that we can make the best product and provide the best service against that product. And to that end, we will still take a percentage of the support calls that come in. I will pick up the phone and I will talk with a customer who needs support. And it allows me and Peter does the same thing. It allows us to really understand firsthand what the customer is experiencing and what their needs are so we can improve our service and we can improve our product.
Yeah. Is SmarterSign helping your clientele, like choosing screens and how to buy them, how to install them? Tell me a little bit about how that works. Are you working with installers and resellers? What's that process look like?
Sure. And really, at our core, we are a software and design company. Like, we make amazing software and solutions for businesses. We don't manufacture screens. So for us to purchase a screen for all of our clients we don't really add much value to that part. So we can make recommendations because we know these screens that are going to work best. We'll work with the company to be able to come up with the best screen for their application because there's a lot that goes into it. However, we don't add any value, like I was saying before. So we would make recommendations for screens. Some companies need a sole provider, and we can pass along those screen recommendations or purchase the screens for our clients that need that single source provider. But in reality, we don't add value. So let's just stick to what we do best.
Yeah, Paul, one of the things that we've seen on the screen front, and just from a financial point of view, when we started out the business, the difference in price between a consumer display and a commercial display was significant. So the choice for a business was a big choice. And you were talking about sometimes 2 or 3 times the cost
Wow.
for a commercial display against something you'd get at a big box store. But there's a lot more parity now in pricing, and the cost difference could be 20%, 30% more as opposed to 2x or 3x. And the value of the commercial display is absolutely there. When people understand, when business operators understand what they're getting, including things like the warranty on a commercial display is totally different than a consumer display. As a matter of fact, if you take a consumer display and bring it into your commercial business, you void the warranty. So basically, you have no warranty on your display. With a commercial display, typically the warranties are 3 years to 5 years,
Right.
and they're on site. So you don't have to depot the screen. You don't have to pull it down off your wall and bring it to a place or ship it to somebody. Usually they're on site warranty.
Another important, as I recall, another important thing that you have to think about with these commercial screens is how long they're going to be on, right?
Yes.
That also has to factor into the buying equation, I guess. Is it going to be on 16 hours a day, 24 hours a day? Yeah. You'd have to imagine that if you're going to be using your screen that much, you need to go commercial, no doubt.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that for a second, because one of the worst things in the world is when you see a screen on a wall and there are wires, right? There's a plug underneath it. There's a wire. There, Greg, uh, you're a well put together guy. I can see that bothers you, doesn't it?
It does. Yes. Yeah.
So how do you get around that? What are you doing? What are we doing to make sure that the client is installing these things properly, whether it be horizontally, vertically, no wires, seamless, beautiful transitions from one screen to the next? How are you helping them achieve that?
Sure. Yeah, primarily, it's about giving the best guidance we can. So we try to be sort of Sherpas for our customers. We try to guide them through the process, and it's all of those little details. And as Peter mentioned, everything you do is a representation of your brand. That whole experience is a representation of your brand. So if there is a cable hanging down, there's a plug visible or extension wire visible or internet cable hanging down, people are going to notice it. They may not look at it and go, "Oh, what the heck are they doing here?" But they do notice it. They take notice of all of those details.
Yeah.
So we try to give the guidance of take care of these as if they're the most important messaging tool you have. All of the details are clean. The screens are lined up. The screens have the right level of brightness. There's no cables hanging down. And part of that is the commercial displays also give you some benefits. They have smaller bezels. They're nice looking. They don't have that glare that Peter was talking about.
Right.
But it's really, and if we see something like, we'll get pictures of our clients will send us pictures of the installations and we'll see them because we don't get to be on site with many of our customers. Our customers are worldwide. But we do get pictures from our customers of the installations. And if we see something in those photographs that we can help improve the presentation, we always will tell them, you can move this very easily. Just this is the way you want to handle this. This is the way we would handle it if it's our business. And that's actually a really important piece of the puzzle. We really do look at our clients' businesses as if they're our own. Because if they're not in business, we're not in business. So we really take care. And that's whether they have one location or they have 500 locations or thousands. They are our clients, and without them, we don't exist.
Absolutely. That's a great point of view and philosophy, I think, to have. One of the things that I've noticed about digital signage is its versatility. I want to get into for a second. Just because you're a restaurant doesn't mean digital signage is only necessarily for the digital drive-through board or inside the store for a menu board. But, and this is particularly true, I think, for larger QSR brands that need to communicate to their team members. We're seeing a lot more digital signage now being used inside of the back office. And using digital signage to actually communicate to team members could be from everything about reminding them to wash their hands, to updating their schedules, to making sure they're checking in with their manager, to cleaning the bathrooms, right? There's tons of opportunities for digital signage to make an operation run more smoothly. Are we starting to see a trend like that?
Yeah, we are. And it's actually an interesting thing because we're seeing the use of digital signage for the total operation really being looked at in unique ways. And again, whenever I see it being done, or whenever we can make a recommendation to a company to do it, it makes me smile because we're just making businesses more efficient. I'm going to give you some examples of how we're seeing digital signage used outside of digital menu boards. We have a Dairy Queen franchisee who has a large number of locations, and they use a screen within the restaurant, not for digital menu boards, but to introduce their staff, their team, to customers. So for everybody on their team in every one of the locations, they have a picture of the employee and they have what their favorite blizzard is. And it creates a level of intimacy between the business, these franchises, and their customers. And it makes those employees feel like they're important and special. We're also seeing screens used in the restaurant during downtime to do things like training. So they have a screen and they have a dynamic communication tool yes, during hours of operation, they can use it to communicate their menu and their promotions and their LTOs and everything to their customers. But they also have the ability to use those screens off hours to do things like training videos and educate their team and their staff. And then, of course, that doesn't take into consideration the corporate communication side of things, where in their corporate offices, they're using screens as well. As a matter of fact, Barilla Pasta is a food company, but they also use, from a corporate communications point of view, they educate their teams and their staff and their visitors within their corporate offices by using digital signage. So it really is, it is not just limited to menu boards. You can use the tool in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I love it because it is, of course, menu boards. It's the first thing you think of. Naturally, you think of the drive-through. Then you can start thinking about utilizing it for team communications, and then, of course, the perhaps even the lowest hanging fruit is advertising. I mean, if you're a QSR brand, you want to push a particular LTO, you can have screens inside of the restaurant absolutely queued up to run through different promotions. These can be set up because this is all cloud-based and because it could all be parsed by store, by location, by region, by country. I mean, you can divide up the messaging any which way to your heart's content.
Yeah.
So the flexibility is really spectacular. Peter, I want to go back to you for a second on the technical side, because I mean, everybody loves digital signage. I have never met anybody that gets upset about seeing a digital menu board. But one of the things that is always you want more restaurants to use these because they're just such incredibly powerful tools. But I want to kind of break a misconception that may be out there about how difficult this is to get started. I mean, what do you need, Peter, to get your digital signage off the ground and running in your restaurant today?
At its core, a digital sign is a screen, some sort of software to display that message, and something to play back that message. In most cases, a digital signage player is a small little device that gets mounted behind a screen, and in almost all digital signage is cloud-based these days. There's still some on-premise things in certain areas that have different requirements, but a small little digital signage player is what controls the playback of the content. And then the content is then updated through a web-based content management system. So these little devices, actually, I think I have one right here. This is an example. A device like this can get mounted behind the screen and it just connects to the network. Very easy to set up. You can connect it either hardwired or Wi-Fi, and it's preloaded with software, so that cloud-based software is in constant communication with the servers. So whenever you make changes in that web-based content management system, it gets sent out to these devices, stored locally for playback, and will continue to play back everything that you have scheduled, all of your day parts. Even if you lose an internet connection, you'll still have the ability, content will still play back because it's stored locally at that device.
I love it. So that is absolutely one of the things that you hear often by operators is like, great, another internet solution. But to your point, if it's so long as that schedule, the content is uploaded, it gets housed inside of that unit, so it's there. And the next time, and if it does lose connection, I'm assuming once it gets back connected, it'll update itself to what it should be playing, to whatever the next, right? Good stuff. Guys, as we come towards the end of this conversation, I want to kind of get your take on where you think this industry is going. I mean, menu boards have been around for a while now. Digital menu boards have been around for a while now. To your point, them being cloud-based was an innovation that happened a number of years ago. What's on the horizon for digital menu boards? Where do we see this taking us?
Yeah, so I think the important thing, there's, again, usually there's two parts to most answers. In this one is the history of where we are, what brought us to this point in time. And as a company, we typically stay away from things that we consider to be novelty. And there have been many things over the years that we look at from a technology point of view and we think, well, that's really interesting. But because they're novel, we know they're not going to get adopted in most cases. So adoption is a really important aspect of what we look at in terms of how we build and grow our product and our services. I always give this example. Very simple technology from adoption point of view was the ATM. The ATM took more than 10 years to get real adoption by the marketplace. And all it is punching a couple of keys to get your own money. And that took so long to get adoption. So new technology takes a long time to get real adoption. So we stay away from novelty. In terms of moving forward, I think with most technologies, and digital menu boards are not different, being more integrated from a data point of view is only going to make it more and more effective. And we're seeing businesses more and more connect their divergent systems from a data point of view so that they can get the most out of them. A really straightforward example of that is POS integration. So if you're integrating with your POS system, your prices are always right on your menu boards, your inventory is always right on your menu boards. But looking at the way that those pieces of data can interact with each other is really important. When we talk about the vision for where digital menu boards are going to go, we talk about looking at intelligently using that data to have the menu boards adapt in real time. So being able to, as an example, set your system to say, I would like to optimize my digital menu boards for inventory, right? Because inventory is a challenge to me from an operator's. I would like to optimize my digital menu boards for top line revenue. I would like to optimize my digital menu boards for margin. So having those simple cues be able to interact with that data set. So when you ask me where the future is, I think the future is merging all of that data, using that data in a very intelligent way to make the systems operate more efficiently and get more value from them every day.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. I think that, well, first and foremost, your digital menu is not necessarily a standalone technology. You do have to integrate, and you'd be wise to be integrating, whether it be with Clover, right, or Square, or whomever your POS provider is. You need to make that connection. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about AI. Is there an AI opportunity in digital menu boards, and have you seen anything like that yet out there?
Yeah, I think AI is everywhere, but it's really important about where you're going to be utilizing it. We use AI in our own systems, but never to replace that human touch and human interaction. So things that we can make sure that AI is doing. So on the back end, if we notice any certain sort of anomalies that are happening, we can use an artificial intelligence to be able to identify those. And as we progress to bring it more towards the customer side, we can use AI to be able to simplify their operations. Because that's, at the end of the day, that's really what restaurant owners and operators want. They want to be able to simplify things. They don't want to add more technology. They want to add, they only want to add technology if it makes things more simple, and if it makes them more money, more. So those are the type of things where we can use AI for. So we often talk about using AI in voice, and that's, I think, is going to be one of the next trends that you'll see in a lot of digital menu boards. Having operators being able to speak commands and have those, the ability to remove this item from my menu for the next 24 hours, things along those lines, just to be able to speak it and have the AI be able to take care of that that's going to be the next trend that you're going to see coming out. And we've already been able to implement it in certain aspects in our business, but it's going to be, that's really where AI fits in.
Yeah.
Not to replace, oh, I have a problem with my screen. Oh, talk to my AI chatbot, because that's not an experience that anybody wants.
Right. So it's more almost you're thinking more in the way that you're building, more in the way that you're building and utilizing the software than it is with actually interaction or even the customer experience.
Yeah, and I think from the customer experience, being able to use AI to target certain customer behavior is one of those things where it's going to be important. But again,
Yeah.
the not from to replace that human interaction. Being able to order from a touch screen, and this is something that we typically have not gone too deep into, because it can be impersonal and it's not doesn't have that full adoption yet. From a Even though you can order on certain cases from an iPad at a location,
Mm-hmm.
talking to somebody and telling them that, hey, listen, just don't put this on there, and instead of having to type in to no salt on my fries,
Right.
it's a time and a place for everything, and I think that's sort of where AI fits in.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point because I think it goes back to the diversity and flexibility of digital signage to begin with, because you're definitely seeing a trend now in restaurants, particularly in QSR, with kiosks. Kiosks are major restaurant brands are spending gajillions of dollars on kiosk conversions inside their restaurants for a number of reasons. For the most part, it boils down to people happen to buy more when they're ordering on their own at a kiosk. But a kiosk is really just kind of a touch enabled digital menu in a lot of ways. But I think that there's definitely room for there's going to be growth on the kiosk side, but where I do believe another major growth area for digital signage is elsewhere inside the footprint of the restaurant. It's one thing to interact with a screen that's directly in front of you. I think it's another thing to communicate effectively and create the ambiance that you want, to create the design that you want, to create the brand that a restaurant is looking for. And there's really no better way to do it than with really large, nice, well lit, well designed, beautifully crafted, uh, branded advertisements and just brand aura. I like to think of it as that can be conveyed through a screen. So before we wrap up, I there's a part of my podcast that I love to do with all of my guests, and it's a little segment I like to call "Hate to Tell You But." And this is kind of an opportunity for you to right a wrong, bust a myth, correct a misconception out there about what it is what about digital signage. So, Greg, give me your hate to tell you but.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's kind of funny coming from a technology company for me to say this, but I really feel strongly that, particularly in the restaurant industry, it is an experience going to a restaurant. And as the price of going out to eat is becoming higher and higher, making a valuable, good experience for those families, for those customers, is really important. So I don't like when people push too hard into technology to maximize their operation at the expense of the service side or the experience side of what their customers are going there for. We don't want people to sit at home and eat. We want people to go and sit around the table. And really, eating is probably the most important social activity people do with each other now. People are face down in their phones, on the elevator. They don't even look at each other. So when they get to a restaurant, being able to sit around with each other and have that experience. So I see the restaurant world, and I see dining out in particular, whether it's fast food or fast casual or fine dining, I see that experience as really important. So pushing too quickly into technology for the sake of pure operational efficiency, to me, is a mistake. We got to remember what we're all doing this for.
That's right.
And that is to create experiences for families so that they can sit around and laugh and make memories together.
I couldn't agree with you more, Greg, because I think one of the things that our industry, particularly on the technology side, we really do get excited about the brightest, shiniest objects. But at the end of the day, it's about hospitality. And listen, usually the best technologies are those that you don't even notice. They're invisible. And I think a digital menu board could be like that because you walk in and you're presented with a beautiful signage, with beautiful food, and everything is clear and it's there, and it just adds to the experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's very visible, but it's invisible because it's branded the right way. Everything coalesces and feels like this is part of the brand.
Yeah, I agree with that perspective 100%.
Yeah. Fellas, this has been great. I really appreciate your time today. We're up against the clock. But before I go, please tell the audience how they can find you, how they can get in touch with you if they're interested in digital signage and digital menu boards for their restaurants.
Sure. So obviously you can go to our website, www.smartersign.com, although you don't even say, I guess you don't have to say the www part anymore. I'm just used to it. Also, call us toll free, 888-907-6278. We'd love to talk with you about your business, what your opportunities are, what your challenges are, and how we can help. And you will find that the experience of support that you get from that very first conversation is going to be unmatched in the industry. And we really take it very seriously in terms of making sure that we make it as easy as possible for everybody and that they're getting the most value out of it.
Excellent. I'll make sure I put those links inside of the show notes. Fellas, it's always a pleasure. I wish you the happiest of holidays.
Thank you, Paul. You as well.
Be well.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, awesome one.
Thank you.
All right.
Good job, guys.